Okay, in this unit we're going to be looking at getting into our vertebrates, our animals with an internal backbone. But this particular unit we're going to be focusing on our fish and amphibians. So our vertebrates that are falling into the category of fish and amphibians. First of all, a vertebrate is an animal with a backbone, so it has an internal skeleton. It does have a vertebral column. All of your mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, and fish will fall into this category. Okay, like I said, we're going to be focusing just on fish and amphibians. So let's start looking at our phyla chordata, okay, or chordata. This is the phyla of animals that have a cord or a spinal cord, which would fall into this category. Our fish, for example, have two-chambered hearts. They are considered ectothermic, which means they cannot regulate their own internal body temperature. Okay, they have to use their environment around them to regulate their body temperature. Humans, we can regulate our own body temperature, okay, but there are certain animals, fish, and then are in that category where their body temperature changes with the temperature of their aquatic environment. All fish also are going to breathe using gills. Now, the way gills work are they are structures that have blood vessels on the surface of the tissue of the gills, and as water passes through the gills, water is going to carry oxygen. And what those gills do is they will capture that oxygen from the water. They will extract it through some chemical processes, and then that's how oxygen gets into the gills, into the bloodstream of the fish, and the fish can use that oxygen for respiration. So let's look at some examples uh, of our fish. Okay, so we're looking at phyla, our phyla chordata. Okay, like our fish, and so let's look at some classes of this phyla. You have hagfish. Um, they have a toothed mouth. They have teeth in their mouth. Okay, they feed on dead or dying fish, and what they do is they can drill a circular hole into the fish using their teeth, and they suck out the blood. So they are blood drinkers. A lamprey is a part of the Cephalospidomorphae class. Okay, and here are some pictures of what a lamprey looks like. It also has teeth, almost like vampire type teeth. Okay, your lampreys are parasitic. Okay, almost like large leeches that can be found in aquatic environments, and they use those teeth to scrape away at the scales and the flesh, and they're also considered blood drinkers. Both of these classes, the Messini and the Cephalospidomorphae, okay, your hag and your lampreys they can be found in freshwater, saltwater, or estuaries. And an estuary is a aquatic environment that has a mixture of both fresh and salt water. So an estuary is where a large river empties into the ocean and deltas are formed. This is where you would find an estuary. There's about a total of about 60 different species in these two classes. They have no jaws, okay, so they have a circular mouth that they use as a twisting motion to get into their prey to access the blood. They do have endoskeletons, but those endoskeletons, so their internal skeletons, are made of cartilage. So it's a flexible skeleton, it's not a hard, bony skeleton. Another class, okay, of your phyla chordata. These are your conricthes. Okay, this is going to include your sharks, skates, and rays. Okay, so the different types of sharks you can think of, your manta rays, your other types of rays, and then your skates. Skates are very similar to rays. They're just a different type of a little bit of a different type of body structure and anatomy. There's about 850 total species that have been classified in this class. All right, they do have endoskeletons, okay, because we're all talking about animals with backbones. However, their endoskeleton is also made of cartilage, so it's a soft skeleton, just like the hag and lampreys. This particular class of animals have paired fins. So what that means, if you look at this picture, these pictures, you can see that on the sharks they have paired fins on either side of the ventral part of the animal. The whale shark has the same. The rays even have paired fins. So they have paired fins. They have something called a lateral line system. This lateral line system is it's a chemical process. It's a set of blood flow and other processes happening within particular structures within these animals that allow them to detect movement and vibrations within the water, almost like a sonar type system. They also have internal fertilization. Okay, uh, some of them will lay eggs, but there are others that will actually incubate those eggs internally before they give birth. So they don't raise their young inside the bellies of the mothers like mammals will. Okay, they will actually keep the young inside an egg, and then they will hatch inside the mother, and then the babies will be born. But then there are some that will still lay eggs, and those eggs will hatch outside the mother. Another class of your aquatic chordata are going to be your osteichthyes. These are your bony fish, okay? So most of the fish we think of when we think of aquatic fish are going to be the bony fish, which means they have a bony skeleton, not a cartilage skeleton. They have gills for breathing. They have paired fins as well. And then they have structures on their epidermis that are going to be flattened, look like flattened bones, okay, or adaptations of flattened bones, these scales. And that's just going to be added protection. They also have a lateral line system. They have something, these bony fish, this osteichthyes class has a structure within them called a swim bladder that allows them to change their level where they are swimming within the water, so it can make them more buoyant, less buoyant. They can rise or sink in the water depending on how they inflate or deflate this swim bladder. And then they have external fertilization. Okay, so this is a class of aquatic vertebrates that have a backbone that use external fertilization, just like our sponges, for example, do. Right? They're going to release the sperm and the egg close together, and then you'll have fertilization that occurs outside the body. Some facts about our aquatic chordata. The smallest type of fish is going to be called the dwarf goby. Your largest fish, okay, and these are all fish that we've talked about so far. Your largest fish is going to be the whale shark. And then your electric eels, some interesting fact about them, they can produce a charge that is equal to about 650 volts of electricity. So just some interesting facts about our fish. All right, let's look at amphibians now. Now, amphibians are interesting because we group them with, or I group them with fish as far as talking about them because they have an aquatic part of their life cycle. Okay, they are aquatic partly, and then they are terrestrial partly, depending on what part of life cycle you're talking about. But this is your class of amphibia. They are ectothermic, just like our fish, which means they cannot regulate their own body temperature. They allow their environment to do that. They have a three-chambered heart. Remember, our fish have a two-chambered heart, but our amphibia have a three-chambered heart. They have lungs. They do not use gills. They have lungs, but they only have lungs as adults. Okay, so once they've transitioned in their life cycle from their aquatic juvenile stage to the adult stage, they're terrestrial, and they use lungs for gas exchange. However, they can also get oxygen through absorbing it through their skin. So they can get oxygen in other ways besides using lungs. They can also use it by absorption through the skin. That's one reason why your amphibians, your frogs, need to stay, even though they might eventually become land animals, they need to stay in a moist environment. So most of them will be found in habitats where you'll have water plenty, rainforests, creeks, lakes, ponds, a type close to a type of aquatic environment. So their skin can stay moist, so they can still have gas exchange that occurs through their skin. Um, like I mentioned earlier, the adults are primarily going to be found on land. They still require water for reproduction. Okay, so that's another reason why they will stay close to a water-based environment. Maybe not in an ocean or a large body of water, even though because they're terrestrial, but they will stay in a terrestrial environment that has access to plenty of water for reproduction purposes. Now, their life cycle is this process of metamorphosis. As a juvenile, they're going to be hatched from an egg inside an aquatic environment, and they will grow inside that water environment until they metamorphose between their aquatic juvenile form into their land lungs air breathing form. So our amphibian, they will change from their metamorphosis. We say tadpoles to frogs. Okay, that is their metamorphosis. They change from that aquatic tadpole to the land-based frog. Now we're going to get a little more specific with our amphibians and focus just on the Anura order, which are going to be your frogs and toads. There's about 3,700 species classified in this category. They have vocal cords, so they can produce sounds. They communicate through that. They can also use it as a defense mechanism. The frogs have a thin, smooth skin. Like I said, it can be used for gas exchange as long as it stays moist. Where toads have a thicker, bumpier skin. Toads usually have poison glands built into their skin that help in aiding as a defense mechanism. Toads are also going to be bigger, okay? And notice the thicker, bumpier skin, where your frogs are going to be more streamlined. They're going to be thinner in shape, and they will have the smoother skin compared to your toads. Okay, another class of amphibia. These are going to, or another order, excuse me, of our amphibia are going to be the caudata, the salamanders and newts. Okay, your salamanders need a lot of moisture in their terrestrial homes for the keeping their skin moist. Your newts not so much, but there's about 369 species that have been classified. They have long, slender bodies. They have a tail and a neck, very similar to reptiles. Okay, but they are amphibians. You have caecilians, which are going to look similar to worms, like segmented worms, but they are amphibious. Okay, they match all the characteristics that all amphibians have. They do not have legs, though. Not all amphibians need legs, and that's the basic characteristics of our fish and our amphibians.